San Francisco, California. The Golden Dragon Restaurant, November 8, 1967, Thursday night. 9:47 p.m. Exactly 23 people were inside that restaurant when it happened. 23 witnesses to something that was never filmed, never photographed, never officially documented. And yet every single one of them remembered it. Because the entire incident lasted only 11 seconds. 11 seconds. But what unfolded in those 11 seconds would echo through martial arts circles for decades, retold in quiet conversations, argued about in training halls, analyzed by fighters who weren't even born when it happened. Some would later dismiss it as a legend. Others would insist with absolute certainty that every detail happened exactly the way it was described. But there is one thing no one who was in that restaurant ever disputed. That night, a 250-pound professional wrestler walked through the doors of the Golden Dragon looking for a fight, and sitting calmly in booth number 7 eating chow mein with chopsticks was Bruce Lee. What happened next lasted less than 12 seconds, but it permanently changed how that wrestler and everyone else in that room understood what real fighting actually was. For nearly 60 years, the people who witnessed it have told the story the same way, quietly, carefully, because they all saw the same thing. And none of them ever forgot it. This is what really happened inside the Golden Dragon Restaurant on November 8, 1967. San Francisco's Chinatown, November 8, 1967, 9:30 p.m. The Golden Dragon Restaurant hummed with life, but it wasn't just busy enough to feel alive. The aroma of garlic, ginger, and soy sauce intertwined, curling around the clatter of woks in the kitchen. Steam wafted from bamboo baskets stacked high, and faint strains of Chinese opera floated from a small radio behind the counter. The soft, deliberate melodies seemed at odds with the subtle tension brewing in the room. 23 people occupied 12 tables, each absorbed in their own worlds. Families were finishing dinner, laughter mingling with the occasional clink of chopsticks. A couple on a date whispered across their tables, sipping tea and sharing a quiet joke. In the far corner, 3 elderly Chinese men hunched over a mahjong set, tiles clicking and rattling in rhythmic familiarity. Waiters moved between tables, carrying teapots and serving trays, their steps measured and practiced. Near the back, away from the streetlights spilling through the windows, sat a small Chinese man in a dark blue tracksuit, booth 7. It seemed inconspicuous, yet the space around it felt charged with subtle significance. The man was 27 years old, 5 feet 7 inches, and weighed 135 pounds. His posture was calm, deliberate. Chopsticks moved precisely from bowl to mouth. A steaming pot of jasmine tea sat beside his plate, and an open notebook rested next to it. Between bites, he wrote rapidly, strokes neat and exact, notes about movement, timing, efficiency, the evolving philosophy of combat. Nobody in the restaurant recognized him. Not yet. He had taught martial arts in Oakland and Los Angeles, performed demonstrations for small crowds, and even played Kato on the Green Hornet television show before it was canceled in 1967. Yet here, he was just another man quietly eating dinner in Chinatown, lost in his thoughts, his presence unnoticed by most. His eyes scanned his notes, then lifted briefly to the restaurant around him. Families laughed, couples whispered, the elderly men debated their next tile. Everything seemed ordinary. Everything except for the quiet energy that radiated from Hema, coiled calm, a mind always observing, calculating. Bruce Lee was more than his appearance suggested. He was focus made flesh, presence made visible in subtle gestures. Outside, the November night pressed against the door, fog rolling off the San Francisco Bay, a chill that hinted at winter's approach. The restaurant's warmth was a bubble, a sanctuary of smell, sound, and motion. But even in this calm, the scene was readying itself for a disruption, a moment waiting to ignite. Bruce lifted his teacup, sipped quietly, and returned to his notes. He wrote a line, paused, adjusted his chopsticks, then wrote another. In that quiet, measured rhythm, there was a hint of the mastery to come. The calm before the storm. A small man in a large city, unnoticed yet prepared. Unremarkable to the casual observer, but anyone paying attention would see the subtle tension, the underlying power restrained and disciplined, like water behind a dam. In booth 7, Bruce Lee finished his bite, set down the chopsticks parallel atop his bowl, and glanced toward the door, not knowing that the moment his eyes met the next entrant, his philosophy, his skill, and his life's work would be challenged in ways that would be witnessed and remembered for decades. The Golden Dragon's door swung open, and a rush of cold November air swept through the warm, fragrant restaurant. The scent of garlic and ginger was briefly overpowered by the sharp bite of winter, and the low hum of conversation faltered for a fraction of a second. Every head turned. The room had shifted. The man who entered was impossible to ignore. 6 feet 4 inches tall, 250 pounds of muscle, broad as a doorway, a presence that demanded attention before he even spoke. Raymond Sullivan, though no one here would know that was his real name, had adopted the boulder for the wrestling circuit. Tougher, marketable, fierce. Raymond's leather jacket creaked as he pulled it from his shoulders and let it hang over one massive arm. Cowboy boots added another inch to his already towering frame. His t-shirt stretched over a chest carved by years of football, boxing, and 9 years of professional wrestling. Every movement spoke of raw, trained power, a man who could crush with a handshake and dominate with a shrug. He had been drinking since 6 p.m. whiskey Jim Beam, double shots. His buddies had tried to stop him, told him to leave the bar 3 blocks away, but Raymond ignored them. Functional drunk, the kind where confidence blooms into arrogance. The kind where judgment clouds behind bravado. Before wrestling, he had been a college football player, before that an amateur boxer. Each phase of his life had reinforced one unshakable truth in his mind. Size matters. Strength wins. The bigger man dominates. And tonight, with the city quieting outside, Raymond had one mission: find something or someone prove himself against. He scanned the room with the eyes of a predator, adjusting to the dim lighting, absorbing the restaurant layout in a fraction of a second. Families finishing dinner, couples laughing quietly, elderly men clacking tiles in a mahjong game. He registered them all but ignored them. They were background scenery, not him. Then he saw it. Booth 7. A small Chinese man, 135 pounds, sitting alone, eating quietly, writing notes between bites. Bruce Lee. Not famous yet, not known beyond a handful of martial arts circles. But something about the way the man moved, the precision of his actions, the calm confidence in his stillness, triggered something in Raymond's alcohol-fueled ego. Maybe it was the quiet defiance. Maybe it was just a convenient target. Maybe it was the kind of casual racism common in 1967. Whatever it was, Raymond walked toward booth 7, boots thudding against the floor, a storm in human form. Heads turned. Conversation stopped. The clink of dishes seemed muted. Every step radiated menace. Raymond's mind was simple and certain. Confront the small man. Assert dominance. Make a statement. Tonight he would prove that size and strength always prevailed. He moved through the restaurant like a white freight train, all muscle and intent, yet under the surface the alcohol sharpened his ego, twisted his confidence into recklessness. He didn't notice the stares, the whispers, or the nervous waiters stepping aside. He only saw his target. Booth 7. And Bruce Lee, calm, present, unaware or perhaps fully aware of what was coming. As he stopped a few feet from the booth, the space seemed to shrink under his weight and stature. Every diner instinctively leaned back, giving distance. Raymond's eyes locked onto the small man. The room held its breath, the quiet before the storm. The giant had arrived. Raymond's boots thudded against the floor as he reached booth 7. Every eye in the Golden Dragon followed him. Conversations ceased. Chopsticks hovered mid-air. The mahjong tiles lay forgotten. The couple on a date shifted uncomfortably. 23 witnesses now fixated on the approaching giant. "Hey, you!" Raymond barked, voice carrying over the subdued restaurant. Bruce lifted his chopsticks slowly, set them across the bowl and looked up. Calm. Neutral. Waiting. "You do kung fu?" Raymond asked. Not a question, more accusation, more provocation. "I practice martial arts," Bruce replied softly, controlled and precise. "Yes." Raymond laughed, too loud, a booming bark that bounced off the walls. "Martial arts, kung fu, all that choppy Bruce Lee style." "Wait, you're actually Bruce Lee?" Bruce said nothing. He merely studied him, eyes scanning the giant, noting posture, stance, the subtle sway of intoxicated confidence, the faint smell of whiskey. Raymond leaned casually against the booth, his shoulder pressing against the edge of the table. "TV kung fu guy? Kato, right?" "Yes," Bruce replied, calm. His tone is neither defensive nor confrontational, just a fact. Raymond's grin widened. "Let me tell you something, Bruce. TV kung fu and real fighting, two different things. I fight for a living. Real fights. Not pulled punches, not camera tricks. Real." Bruce lifted his teacup, sipped jasmine tea, set it down with quiet composure. Professional wrestling is entertainment. The outcomes are predetermined? Raymond's face darkened. You calling me fake? I am saying the outcomes are predetermined. Fact. Raymond's jaw clenched. The alcohol and ego brewed dangerously. Little man, I could break you in half before you landed one of your choppy kung fu moves. Bruce remained still, present, calm. Size and strength matter, but they are not the only factors. Raymond scoffed. Yeah? You believe this? I know it. I've fought big men. Tough men. Size always wins. Bruce nodded. Then, quiet, deliberate. Have you ever fought someone trained in efficient movement? Raymond laughed. You mean dancing around? Spinning kicks? Movie bullshit. Bruce's calm gaze met him. Economy of motion. Directness. Using your opponent's force and momentum against him. Raymond's grin faded. Philosophy doesn't stop a 250-pound man from grabbing you. The strength does. Size does. Bruce slid the napkin on the table, rose from the booth. The height contrast was staggering. 5'7" against 6'4". The restaurant held its breath. The elderly men paused their mahjong. The couple leaned back. A waiter peeked from the kitchen, nervous. You genuinely believe size determines the outcome? Bruce asked quietly. I don't believe it. I know it. Then you should have no problem demonstrating this, Bruce said. One of us is correct. Raymond's eyes narrowed. Are you challenging me? I am offering an opportunity, Bruce replied. Demonstrate your strength. I will show you its limits. At that moment, the restaurant owner appeared. Mr. Chen, 55, decades of experience running the Golden Dragon, stepped out from behind the counter. No fighting. This is a restaurant. Police will come. Bruce spoke rapidly in Cantonese, respectful, controlled. Mr. Chen listened, skeptical, then argued softly. Bruce gestured toward the back near the kitchen. A demonstration. Controlled. No damage. Quick. Mr. Chen calculated the risk. A fight might damage tables, scare patrons. Yet Bruce's calm presence, promise of respect, and reputation intrigued him. Finally, Mr. Chen nodded. Space over here. Quick. No break anything. You understand? Both men acknowledged. Raymond's grin returned, tinged with curiosity. This is actually happening. You sure about this, little man? Bruce walked to the cleared area, dark blue tracksuit, soft-soled shoes. Relaxed, present. The stage was set. 9:47 p.m. The Golden Dragon had transformed. The last booth pushed aside. Chairs rearranged. Families retreated. Mahjong tables abandoned. Every eye in the restaurant tracked the two men now occupying the back space near the kitchen. The restaurant, once full of chatter and the smell of garlic and ginger, was now a silent arena. Bruce stood in the cleared area, relaxed, natural, hands at his sides. Dark blue tracksuit. Soft-soled shoes. No warm-up. No stance. Just a present. Raymond removed his leather jacket, rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck. A professional ritual of intimidation. T-shirt clinging to a massive chest. Arms like tree trunks. Hands capable of crushing. A lifetime of physical dominance condensed in the width of his shoulders. Okay, mister. Chen's voice broke the tension. No punching face. No break furniture. If someone gets hurt, we stop. Understand? Both men nodded. Raymond's grin tightened, masking growing unease. Raymond lunged first. No telegraphing, just raw aggression. His arm shot out to grab Bruce's torso, intending to lift, pin, control. The restaurant held its collective breath. Bruce moved not dramatically, not theatrical, just shifted subtly. Weight transferred. Angle changed. Raymond's hands closed on empty air. Momentum carried him forward, unbalanced. Shocked, he stumbled, barely able to plant his feet. Second attempt. Raymond tried to corner Bruce against the wall, using his size to shrink available space. Bruce moved along the edge with smooth, economical steps. Each motion precise. Raymond committed fully, arms extended, thinking victory certain. But again, Bruce was not where Raymond expected. This time, Bruce's contact was light, calculated, at the wrist and elbow. In an instant, Raymond rotated 180 degrees, momentum redirected. Confused, his feet scrambled to adjust. The restaurant gasped. Raymond's mind, trained in real fighting, struggled to comprehend what he was witnessing. Every principle he knew, size, strength, dominance, seemed irrelevant. Bruce stood calm, centered, and neutral. The third engagement began. Raymond secured a grip, clinching the smaller man as if to demonstrate absolute control. Bruce dropped his weight, sinking, coiling inside Raymond's hold. His forearms touched the inside of Raymond's wrists, not pushing, just guiding. The clinch dissolved. Bruce's hands moved with methodical clarity, showing 3 lethal targets, barely touching: solar plexus, throat, floating rib. No strikes, demonstrations, instructional pressure. Raymond froze, caught in the psychological impact. He had never felt such vulnerability while fully in control. The witnesses watched in disbelief. There was no violence, no anger, yet the lesson was undeniable. Raymond's confidence began to crumble. The man who believed in size above all else was being taught, in seconds, that technique, efficiency, and awareness could dismantle brute force. Finally, Raymond's pride and ego took over. "One more," he barked. "Raw aggression, no strategy." He charged, arms extended, intent clear. Bruce did not evade, did not flinch. The giant's hands closed on him. Triumph surged. Victory seemed imminent. Then Bruce moved. Weight dropped. Body coiled. Right leg swept behind Raymond's lead leg. Left hand guided elbow. Right hand controlled shoulder. The rotation and sweep subtle, precise, unstoppable, launched Raymond off balance. Airborne horizontal. 6 inches off the floor. Entirely at Bruce's control. Tood! Raymond landed flat on his back. Wind knocked from his lungs. Mind struggling to process how he went from grip to being airborne in a heartbeat. The restaurant remained frozen in silence. Even kitchen sounds ceased. Bruce extended a hand. "Are you hurt?" Raymond blinked. Pride and breath rattled. "No," he whispered. Humiliation, respect, astonishment intermingled. 11 seconds had passed. 11 seconds that redefined every assumption Raymond held about combat. The lessons of size, strength, and ego were shattered, replaced with something deeper: structure, timing, efficiency, awareness. The restaurant exhaled collectively. Witnesses knew they had seen more than a physical contest. They had seen master-controlled, precise, profound. Raymond, the bolder, understood in a single, unforgettable sequence what Bruce had long known. Technique triumphs over brute force. The restaurant returned to its ordinary rhythm. Mahjong tiles clattered. Families finished dessert. Laughter returned. But for Raymond, the bolder, nothing would ever be the same. The lesson he had just experienced at the Golden Dragon on November 8, 1967, replayed incessantly in his mind. 11 seconds. 11 seconds that unraveled everything he thought he knew about strength, dominance, and fighting. A week later, on November 15th, Raymond drove to Los Angeles. He walked through the doors of the Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute in Chinatown. The small sign, black and gold, read quietly, Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute. Inside, Bruce Lee was teaching a class. He paused, looked up, and nodded once at the man who had humiliated him, then returned to the students. Raymond waited until the lesson ended. When Bruce approached, he spoke with calm authority. "You came." Raymond nodded, voice low but sincere. "I said I needed to understand. Not to beat you, but to learn. To unlearn what I thought was true." Bruce studied him, eyes steady. "Are you willing to empty your cup? Completely empty?" "I am," Raymond replied. And so it began. 8 months of rigorous training, November 1967 to July 1968. Raymond never became Bruce's equal. He never reached mastery. But what he did learn redefined him. Size and brute strength no longer dictated his every movement. Structure, timing, efficiency, awareness became the new foundation. Every step, every grip, every defensive maneuver ingrained into muscle memory. He returned to professional wrestling eventually, but with a different rhythm, a new intelligence in motion. Colleagues noticed. He never told the full story, they wouldn't have believed it anyway. Back at the Golden Dragon, November 8th replayed in memory. At 10:15 p.m., Bruce finished his chow mein, sipped jasmine tea, and conversed briefly with Mr. Kane. "Very impressive, Mr. Lee," Mr. Chen said, "but very dangerous. What if that man had pulled a knife? Or a gun?" "You remain so calm." Bruce considered it. "A weapon changes everything. Fighting is about survival, not proving points or ego. You pick battles worth fighting. Tonight was education for both of us." The Mahjong elder, voice carrying across the restaurant, spoke in Cantonese. "Water defeats stone. Bruce nodded respectfully. The stone is rigid. Water flows. Water wins. Years later, the story of Booth 7 endured. Bruce Lee's philosophy transcended that night. Kate Kyun-do would inspire generations. Movies, schools, disciples, global reverence. Even after his death in 1973, at just 32, the lessons remained. Today, Booth 7 still stands in the Golden Dragon. Beside it, a small black and white photograph of Bruce Lee, taken in 1967. A brass plaque reads, "Bruce Lee sat here, November 8, 1967. Visitors listen in awe. Some skeptics, some believers. But every so often an elder who witnessed that night smiles quietly, recounting how a small man made a giant look foolish not with force, but with mastery. Discipline, knowledge, humanity. 11 seconds changed everything. Not just for Raymond Sullivan, not just for the restaurant, for martial arts forever. And for anyone who would later come to understand that real skill does not belong to size or ego, but to wisdom, control, and relentless dedication."